I can't quite work out how the law, if it is changed in Scotland, will be put into practice, because broadly speaking, I imagine most time that parents spend with their children is actually in their own homes or in the homes of friends and families, where the police and social workers are not privy to what goes on.
That's right, but kids talk. So
Ah,
if little Johnny goes into school the next day and it comes up in conversation with a mate that his mum smacked him on the back of the hand, what if the teacher hears that? That teacher's, it may be very reluctantly, but they may think, oh, well, the politicians have told us that this is now an offence. I guess I've got to report them. So I'm afraid I think that what happens in the privacy of people's own homes could result in them being investigated by the police.
I am. This is one of the most troubling aspects when politicians change laws, and I think sometimes you have unforeseen consequences. There's quite a well-known account, it's probably over 10 years old now, of a mother who smacked her son, I think he was 8, twice on the upper arm with a hairbrush because he wasn't getting ready for school. And as a consequence, she was convicted and I think sent to prison, and the boy put into the care system. And I have to say, as someone who was smacked by his father and by his mother, that the notion that I could have ended up in care as a consequence seems to far exceed whatever damage the parent could be inflicting on their child. I mean, I just couldn't. I think back to as a child, the idea of being taken away from my family and locked up in a children's home because because I'd done something wrong and my dad had smacked me. I mean, that would have been my worst nightmare as a child.
It is. It's out of all proportion. And what's interesting is the Welsh government is planning to do the same thing. But to be fair to them, they've been honest on this one point. They've said on the record, there is no research which shows that this kind of mild, infrequent discipline harms children. And nor can there be.
Is that right?
Now, they're admitting that, and yet they're still going ahead with the ban. And so it is out of all proportion. And I'm afraid, I think that for some of these politicians at least, it's just virtue signaling, because you hear a lot of them say this: we're not criminalizing anyone, we're just sending a message. Well, if you want to send a message, use social media. Don't use the criminal law. If you do not understand as a lawmaker that if you vote for a criminal law that's going to be enforced, then you shouldn't be a lawmaker in the first place.
Kirsten, do you smack your kids?
Well, you see, I have 2-year-old twins. One of them can get out of his car seat. Now, we have tried telling him off. We've tried the naughty step. We've tried not giving him treats. It's dangerous what he's doing. At one point, we started smacking him on the hand to try and demonstrate what you do, because he was getting out in a moving car.
Can you get me social services, please, producer Ricky? I think we've got someone to take away.
Nine. Do you know what I mean? He's too young to reason that what he's doing is dangerous.
Have you ever considered you're a criminal?
But I was out of ideas. I mean, it didn't feel great.
Did it
I
work?
did it about twice.
Did it work?
Well, I kind of think it did.
Isn't that,
the upset of it.
Simon Calvert, isn't that what the anti-smacking brigade, they're right about this, aren't they? That actually smacking is a kind of the action of the last resort. It's the desperate parent. One might argue, although not you, Kirsten, I'm not suggesting this, but one might argue it's the sign that the parent who's out of control has lost control of their child.
They do say that, and I think it's incredibly patronising when they do, because parents have to weigh up all kinds of considerations. They know their own kids. They know what works and what doesn't. And, sometimes they make the judgment that this is what I need to do. And they're not abusing their children. They're not even leaving a reddening of the skin. It's just a short shock to the child, which helps to get their attention, which helps to reinforce that this isn't a good thing to do. And I would say to Kirsten, there are thousands and thousands of other families in exactly the same situation. And I would say this as well. One of the other things that the anti-smackers say is, parents don't feel good about smacking, and kids tell us that they don't like it. Well, I mean, who knew? Of course, parents have to do all kinds of things. Parents do all kinds of things for their kids that they wish they didn't have to do. The naughty step, telling them off, banishing them to the rooms. I don't like that myself, but whatever. They do all kinds of things they don't like doing, but they do it because they love their kids and they want to help them to grow up to be well-functioning adults. And the kids, they don't like the punishments either, but as it's necessary. It's for their good.
I think there are about 58 countries around the world which have banned smacking. South Africa, France, Greece, Hungary, Iceland, Ireland, Cyprus, Austria. I could go on. Sweden was the first one.
1979, so it goes back.
It goes back that way.
When I was smacked in, I was smacked in the 80s, so...
Well, there's a lot of people might say you deserved it.
Ouch.
Brendan O'Neill now. Brendan, you're the editor of Spiked. What's your opinion on all of this?
I think outlawing smacking is outrageous. I think it's an intervention into the sovereignty of the family. I think parents must be allowed to decide for themselves how to discipline their children. And I think it's based on a fundamental misunderstanding of smacking. Smacking, when it's done by the majority of parents, is not a violent act. Smacking is about love. Smacking is expressing your authority over your child because you care deeply for them and you don't want them to make the same mistake again. People conflate smacking and beating. These are very, very different things.
Interesting. I would just like to refer that, just now that we've got it, to the psychologist on all of this, and that is Emma Kenny. And Emma, if we could just, you heard what Brendan said there. He said smacking is not a violent act. It is about love.
Absolutely no parent in the history of parenting smacks someone in the moment because of love. They smack because they've lost control. More importantly, mental health professionals all across the world, not just in the UK, agree that smacking does far more harm than good. And actually, when we look at evidence, tends to mean that the child who is smacked has a far more violent disposition in the future. So if it's an act of love, an act of love should see the future of our children living healthy, happy relationships, non-violent relationships, relationships where you can get through things with words. That is evidence-based. I don't know where you're thinking that this has come from love, because the evidence just isn't there to support it.
Where are you coming from, Brendan? How are you feeling this? You feel that you were disciplined through love, and indeed, I don't know if you're a father yourself. I mean, do you discipline because of love of your children?
I don't have children myself, but I'm speaking from the experience of someone who grew up in an Irish immigrant community where parents loved their children deeply and worked morning, noon and night to provide for them. And they had traditional methods of discipline. Some smacked their kids, some would forbid them from going. But let me finish my point. These communities are actually sick and tired of these middle class experts coming in and using the law, using the law to prevent families from doing what they think is best for their children. This is the tyranny of the kind of tofu mum, the new dads. This middle-class layer of society that thinks it has the right to tell everyone else how they should behave and how they should behave.
Well, Brendan, let's see if you've got any backing. We go to Glasgow. Alan on the line from Glasgow, and you are a dad, Alan?
Yeah, hi, Eamonn.
Hiya. What would you say about all of this? Do you smack your boy?
Well, the perspective I come from is 2 years ago reading an article in the paper saying that the Scottish Government was about to or trying to put legislation in to ban it, and my reaction was that I was appalled that they were trying to do that, and that I reserved the right, if I needed to lift my hands to my boy. I must say I've come complete full circle on that now.
Why is that? What do you believe now?
Well, what I've learned is that the way we act towards our children, that is us educating them. And by me lifting my hands to him, he would think that in certain scenarios that is appropriate behaviour.
To smack someone else?
Play and soft play and nursery, etc.
Okay. Let's go to Kate now and see what else people are saying about this. Are they agreeing with Brendan? Or are they agreeing with Alan and Emma?
There we go. Well, Jackpot says, Eamonn, I'm torn. I'm a child of 66. My parents, not often, but when needed to, got the wooden spoon out, waved it like a Star Wars saber with a wee whack on the back of the hands or legs, and it's done me no harm. In fact, a lot of messages saying, I was smacked and it's done me no harm. And I know Emma's making the point that if a child is smacked, then they're more likely to be violent in later life. I mean, I was smacked as a child. I'm not a violent person. Are you, Eamonn?
No, I don't think so. But maybe I might be keener to justify violence as a result. I don't know. I'd have to think about that one. But Brendan, opinion polls have suggested that a majority of people in Scotland are against this ban. They argue that the current law is sufficient and that the changes risk criminalising what is termed good parents?
I think they're absolutely right. And I was smacked as a child, and it did me no harm. And I am not a violent person by any stretch of the imagination. That's just one of those prejudices that is pushed about by the so-called expert class, who they think the working class communities are this kind of groundswell of violent abuse. But the thing is, just imagine the impact that this ban will have on loving parents. Imagine the mum whose son runs into the road and she gives them a slap because she's really worried. Do we report her to the police? Or the father who loves his children more than life itself, and he thinks a smack on the back of the legs is preferable to sending them to the naughty step for half an hour. Should he be locked up? I mean, we are talking about criminalising loving parents just because their parenting style is different to other people's. I think that's really tyrannical, and I really hope that this law gets overthrown.